So thank you very much and welcome to our presentation today. On the picture behind us, you see something that many consider the world's oldest banking system. And maybe it's familiar to you, maybe it's not, but it was built by Berber tribes maybe around 500 years ago on the southwest of Morocco, surrounded by the Anti-Atlas Mountains, in order to protect their treasures, the community treasures. So it's an elaborate system of vaults where they stored their grains at that time, or jewelry, some legal documents of the family. Now, over time, this community actually evolved, and it became some sort of a modern cooperation or collaboration like we can see it today, a cooperative of some sort, where if there were surplus in goods and in grains, they would store it in vaults and they would exchange it with the families who didn't have that much. And also what is really important is that over time, because they were in a desert, there were many wars, there were other tribes and bandits and not that convenient weather conditions. So they started using these vaults also as a shelter, sometimes as a debate halls or as mosques. And why is this story so, let's say, important to us, or why we are telling it today? We think it presents actually a historical validation of two things. The first one is how organization or how structure reflects always organization. And the second one is that how structure evolves over time, how community or organization evolves. Well, we are here to tell you our story. We are also coming from a bank. It's not 500 years old, it's 130 years old approximately. And it was founded by Wilhelm Friedrich Raiffeisen in Austria, approximately 130 years ago, by the name of Raiffeisen. What we are today is Raiffeisen Bank International. We operate on 11 core markets. We have around 43,000 employees approximately, and 18 million customers served. So, let's start. The story today, or we are here to share with you, not about the reorganization of the whole bank, but how we designed a multi-site setup, product setup, for two products in our bank, which challenges we encountered on the way and how we addressed them, and of course, some learnings that we had in the context of team setup, ways of working, and product decision-making. So, let's start.
So here today, we will talk about real-life stories about two banking products and what's happening behind. I am quite sure that you are familiar with some of them. Anyone ever went to bank or online wanted to borrow some money? Okay, yes, exactly. So one of these products is lending, and the second one is definitely also even probably more familiar when we are all the time exchanging foreign currencies, is related to foreign exchange. And we will actually be talking about what was happening in the background when mostly, of course, we as a customers don't care, right? But we as bankers do. And the examples are in the segment of small and medium companies that were operating or that are still operating in these 11 core markets that Anna shared. So why did we actually embark on this journey of any kind of change in this area of these two products? Well, in lending, the reality that we had and that we have been living in was totally different from the perceptions what our clients had about lending. So time to money for our customers was measured in weeks, also in months. We, in the area of lending in SME, were losing practically money because our background processes were totally cumbersome and almost 100% manual. Similarly, in foreign exchange, we were facing potential loss of business due to digital competitors that you, of course, know, like N26, Revolut. So it was obvious that these challenges are there and we need to do something. And those were actually motivators for us we knew that we need to do something, and we thought, okay, let's experiment with something new and some new approaches and try to turn the ship around. Because we were sure that if we manage to do that in these two areas, in these two product groups, then we would definitely bring some competitive advantage for our business on all these markets in lending and foreign exchange.
So this dream became a vision, really a product vision, or you might also call it a hypothesis that we went on a journey to prove. So the idea was, or the hypothesis was, if we build this one digital solution that will be simple to use, secure, of course, because we work in a bank, and also it will solve all of these problems from the customers while at the same time simultaneously bringing value for the bank, this would be a win-win. And actually, we wouldn't be standing here on the stage and talking about this to you if these hasn't materialized. So these are the two products, one for lending and one for foreign exchange, currently serving approximately 5 markets or 5 countries. We have tens of thousands of customers and trading and lending volumes measured in millions of euros. So that's our current reality. The road to there, of course, was not an easy one, especially since we are coming from a traditional bank. We had many challenges and learnings. Whenever people are involved, you have all kinds of things to consider. And today, we actually chose to talk about challenges and learnings that we had in the context of team setup, ways of working, and decision-making. Very important thing to note is that we are not recommending that you do exactly what we did. It's just a sharing of the experience bounded to our context, and we feel that you might get some inspiration and learnings out of it. So we did it so that you don't have to.
Okay, then let's look at the team setup. It's multi-site. You will hear how we came to that point. But when you think of setting up the team, one normally asks ourselves, like, how do we start? And in our case, you saw our vision. We, together with our colleagues from business and IT and across the organization, discussed that we try to validate this hypothesis and to test it in one of the markets. Our colleagues from Croatia actually volunteered, and we said, okay, let's set up the team and do MVP for lending in Croatian market. And then we practically assembled small Scrum team, actually, with representatives from head office in Vienna and also with representatives from Croatian Raiffeisen Bank in that market. That was a small team. We had all skill set needed to deliver lending end-to-end. And very soon, the discussion started. Okay, we knew what we want to achieve. Should we do it greenfield? Should this team develop a solution on their own? Or maybe we look on the market for some vendor solution, some third-party solution that might serve as a basis for our unique group product that we want to have. It was actually, these were long discussions, but finally decision was made that we go with the vendor, and a vendor has been chosen. This was a company from Serbia, actually, and just to give you the context even more, this was 2022, a full Corona lockdown. We were across the Europe, in Croatia, Serbia, Austria, and we had this idea to test this MVP. At the very beginning, we faced challenges with vendor who actually didn't understand what we want to do and that we really want to do small increments to test iteratively on the market to see if it makes sense, or if not, that we just let it go and do our business differently. They were rather in a mode, okay, you just give us your specification, let us do our work, we will deliver it to you in, I don't know, 2-3 months. There is this magical 3 months something when you talk about SDLC with these vendors, and then we will, you will test it, integrate, and that's it. So for us, was absolutely no go. We said no, we don't want to work like that. So it required a lot of even education and discussions and negotiations with vendor. And finally, to cut it short, we actually agreed that collaboration with vendor will be that they will be practically part of the team. So we assembled full cross-functional Scrum team together with vendor. It didn't matter who is from where. We had our vision and we knew what we wanted to build. So it was easy. So far, one team, they delivered their thing. The idea actually was validated, and colleagues from business got really good and big appetite. They said, okay, we want to go and expand on all other markets as soon as possible because they saw potential. We, as agile coaches and consultants in org design, we said, okay, let's see how we do it. And we thought, okay, we will expand one market by one, let's say setting up the teams one by one, in which few months time lapse, but actually very quickly, although it was one by one, we ended up in environment with 3, 5, 6, and even now 8 teams with approximately 90 people working on this one solution for these markets. And challenges were like you can imagine, I guess. I already mentioned one regarding cultural differences, which we started with. So many different nationalities and people across Europe. Then very quickly, we discovered that, yes, we had this cool idea, and actually, we think that customers really want to get their loan as quickly as possible from the comfort of their sofa. They don't want to go to the bank. But it actually proved wrong in some markets because in, for example, Bosnia, which is very small, customers, they want, of course, to have their money quicker, but they also want to go to the bank to talk to their relationship manager because they want to keep this human touch. So we had to adapt, of course, in that respect. Coming to the other side, technologically, I mentioned our challenges at the beginning, why we embarked on this journey. And we had really totally traditional cumbersome processes. On the system, IT system side, many legacy systems. In lending, there were 13. And also, we are here talking about decades-old core banking systems. Totally monolith architecture that we, wanted to have this modern solution on top and that we integrate all of that and have smooth experience for customers. So it was really, I think, brave to think about that. Combining with different type of dependencies, we call them local dependencies, but really different type, of course, between the systems, because we are talking about this legacy systems, but also between the product teams within these organizations internally and as well as externally. Because, for example, in lending, if you want to have real-time data that you, in 2 minutes, give a loan to your customer, of course, you need to have real-time connections with within all your systems. And that would also mean to real-time integrate with the customer register, which is state-owned in all of these markets. And it's really a challenge, I can tell you, to have it. And it required a lot of adaptations, of course. All these teams that are drawn on this picture, they are operating as a part of Raiffeisen Group, but all these country banks are separate legal entities. And it was really a challenge to bring us all to the same page, because we were witnessing that many of our colleagues actually have totally different understanding of good engineering practices in terms of continuous integration, continuous delivery, different types of automation that we wanted to have. Because for us, it was not separable. We really couldn't afford not to take into consideration this part. It's like flesh and blood if we are talking about designing org setup. So we had to work a lot on that. It also comes in hand with different levels of agile maturity because majority of these country teams or banks were working in rather project delivery based. So they were delivery mode. They were really not familiar with this, let's say, product approach that we wanted to set. Yes, we are bank. We are traditional bank, strictly regulated per se as an environment. But on top of that, what we faced in our on the lending example of our landscape is that some of our banks or country teams were operating in European Union, some outside. And we also had to adapt to that because we wanted to have this same solution, one group solution and similar customer experience. But this was really hindering us a lot. And we are not joking here. These are like regulations that can make it or break it, meaning that if we don't comply with that, we can lose our banking license. If you ever experienced working with the bank, there is something which is called materially significant externalization, which means that for us in the bank, if we want to put something in cloud, like lending is our material significant process and product, because this is what we live from, right, and earn money. So if we want to digitalize lending, and FX consequently, and put it in cloud, we need to get approval from the national regulator, meaning national bank, in each and every of these markets, because they consider it that if we do it, it can break our, policies and whatever. So we had to also deal with that as well. Oh, so I didn't want to scare you. This was intentionally, designed in our talk that I have my whining part, and now in the next part, hopefully you will get this inspiration that Anna was talking about.
So actually, yeah, it's very easy to put these 5 or 6 teams at the moment on one slide, but to enable their collaboration and then align them towards producing one, as you have heard, group solution is a completely different thing. And one very important hindrance that you should remember is, as Lejla just mentioned, those were different organizations, legal entities, many already existing IT systems that are already working, and we need to integrate them together, which meant for us that regardless of the organizational setup and cross-functional teams that we put into place, there were still some communication pathways and communication structures in place. So there's no better time to remind ourselves and pull out the Conway's Law, of course. And it was also a reminder for us that if we allow that existing communication structures continue to exist, and if we don't touch this topic, it wouldn't matter which type of organizational design or architecture we put in place, because we would probably just end up with not one group solution, but with many local solutions or many customized locally solutions. So this was our first learning, where to start and raise this most important question, and this is: how do we adapt our communication structures so that we optimize for fast delivery of customer value for the whole product group? So how did we do it? We had to, of course, guide ourselves with certain principles. Although, to be perfectly honest, in our role as Agile coaches, the organization in some form or a way expected that we just come there, wave our magic wand and say, hey, let's do less. Let's do safe. Let's do one of the scaled methodologies that exist on the market. The reason for this is, yes, we are a highly regulated environment, and as any other probably highly regulated and big company in Europe, we have to have this, or we tend to solve our problems with process-first thinking. But we kind of knew better, or at that time we started learning also. So we tried to apply our systems thinking hat. And we knew that whatever we do, whatever we design, however we want to communicate, it has to be optimized for the whole system, so for the whole group and delivery of this one group solution. The second part, which we already mentioned, is that, as I said, we already had in place these organizations and maybe some of the teams and communication structures. So we had to start really with, first of all, acknowledging that and ensuring transparency, because there was also some value there and some skills. So we had to start there, and then we had to ensure how we were moving forward in the transformation and the setup. And the most important principle, which is also kind of our hope that this would be the outcome, since we are all building one product, that we will all be living one team mindset. Having these principles in place is nice, but how we were living it, here are some examples of our group practices that we would like to guide you through today. So we actually chose common language to talk about common language, to talk about aligned goals and short feedback loops. If we speak about common language, actually, we would like to talk to you today through our example of collaboration agreements. So this is what you end up with if you establish or have a practice of speaking the common language, more or less. This is the current version, a snapshot of a collaboration agreement for lending, cross-country lending teams. So they're all living this. And where do we see the example of common language? Well, on one side, yeah, when we say common language, yes, it means speaking English, of course. But what does this mean? Speaking it in a documentation, speaking it in communication. And if you ask yourself, was this really an issue? Yes. So the example would be when we were starting maybe with Polish teams, they were used to working and writing their documents and requirements in Jira. So in Polish. So we had to kind of change all of this in Romanian, etc. This didn't mean that Lejla and me as Agile coaches were traveling to those countries to teach them English, of course. God forbid. Our English is also as Eastern Europeans. Yeah. So different. But it meant that we had to speak a common language in understanding what does it mean to have a cross-functional team. We also had to speak the same language, what does it mean Scrum? So Lejla mentioned that we had different agile maturities in different countries. So for some people, having a product owner meant completely different than for someone else. So we actually had a very big role in this, and we were going to the countries, to those teams, and actually coaching them, but also enabling the environment in which they were, which meant coaching the leadership, also working with engineers and engineering coaches, etc. So these would be just some of the examples. But since I'm mentioning engineering, for us, speaking common language also meant speaking engineering language. And here, I mean, if you are interested, we can show you later. But what we have is actually a set of RBI, so Raiffeisen Bank International engineering values and principles, which meant the common language for our engineers. One of the examples here is actually in order for you to practically deliver one solution, you have to be aligned in the understanding what does it mean to do continuous development, how our test environments look like, how many test environments do we have, or how many environments do we have, how do we deploy, what is definition of done. So everyone had to have this same understanding. So here on the picture is actually our own in-house developed orchestration tool that we use, and some of the examples of the environments, I think we took it for the foreign exchange example, correct. And if we speak about common language, of course, we also have to touch the topic of architecture. So here you have an example of high-level design, very simplified to be perfectly honest, for the foreign exchange solution. And what you see here, you see that it looks really simple. In practice, again, or in the picture, it is. What is behind all of this is the following. So on one side, as we said, we were digitizing our businesses of lending and foreign exchange, deploying on cloud, right, using modern technologies. On the other side, we were actually integrating in the already existing systems. So what does this mean practically? If you want to do a foreign exchange transaction, you have to integrate with the core banking system of the country, of the bank, of the country bank. For us, practically, actually, this meant that these systems were vendor-based. They were even different sometimes, so you don't have the same core banking systems in all of the countries. On the other side, the example is that if you want to do, or if you want to see real-time foreign exchange rates, you have to integrate with the pricing engine. Again, the pricing engine is a vendor-developed solution, again, probably different in different countries, etc. So here again, if we left the communication structures in place as they were, so this meant that someone responsible for the network banking, there was a team, and they were not talking to anyone else, this would again mean that we would never end up with evolving or adapting potentially the existing architectural solution. So once again, for us, we had to go back to Conway's law, but really to his original paper, and remind ourselves that by constantly trying to think about including all of those people, if they were not part of the team, then how they should collaborate and communicate with the team. This would also, by evolving their communication, it would reflect the evolution of our solution design, our architecture, and then potentially we would also adapt our organizational design if it was needed. So just a small reminder. Yeah, let me enlarge it, just in case. This is our learning, or one of the, I mean, it's a reminder on the Conway's law, to be perfectly honest, but it's a little bit of a different phrasing. So if we want to evolve our solution, if we want to evolve our architecture, we have to be constantly doing this by keeping our communication structures and our organization flexible. Common language, once again, to bring it back for the one group solution, it really meant having one unified solution with one code base, flexible, easy to integrate. So you remember, besides the common language, we talked about the aligned and shared goals. This is a precondition for everything. So if we speak about aligned and shared goals, this meant that we all have to have one product strategy and one roadmap across all of the countries. It couldn't happen that Romania has their own roadmap and their own backlog, and that maybe, you know, Croatia has their own strategy. So before you start any type of work like this in group solutions, you have to align this and also keep it aligned continuously. And this is one of the examples how we keep it aligned continuously and being flexible. On the foreign exchange example, we changed actually the product vision recently because there was a learning that potentially this solution maybe is not for all of the 11 countries fit. Some countries or some markets are more mature once again. So also this meant that consequently the business strategy for foreign exchange maybe wants to go more in doing the business in other distribution channels, maybe not just solving everything through this one solution. Short feedback loops. Yeah, this is the easy one, of course. And for us, and this is what we will show you today, it actually meant establishing and keeping up with the cross-country ceremonies. And the most important ones, which we will tell you today, are these cross-country or group road mapping sessions. They were held approximately every 4 weeks. And this is where you do the high-level planning of your roadmap and kind of have these local representatives fight what's the priority. And even more important, if there were some decisions or changes needed in the architectural part, this is where the first talks would happen. So we kind of ensured that we constantly have this replanning sessions in all of the spheres. And of course, this one you know, very briefly. What this meant for us was how we actually learned that we are living a one-team mindset was when at one situation, just before the major rollout to all of the countries, Romanian colleagues raised their hand and they said, we have to postpone the release. The reason for this was because they lost their test engineers, so they didn't have essentially anyone to cover the integration testing at that point. Luckily, once again, this is how we learned that we are doing something really good. Croatian colleagues said, no problem. Let us do the testing for you and let us upskill your people. So this living without any, I didn't think that they had any gain in all of this, but essentially this is what we brought up over time.
Okay, and maybe you noticed that Anna deliberately skipped something what is meant what is written here is a local product owner. This is actually the third thing that we wanted to share with you from our learnings, and it's related very briefly to product decisions, actually. When we started designing this organizational setup, we really wanted to have one person in the role of product owner and to have only one product backlog, as you have noticed, for the all teams. And very soon then we started facing the questions, okay, who will be that person that understands all these markets and who can represent all the local customers? Who will be the one who knows all these financial regulations and these local specifics? And fast forward to today, we ended up in the setup that is currently working for us, is that we have someone in the role of local product owner in each and every country team. Terminology is not important, it's just how we call that person, but this is actually local representative, someone who is in charge to ensure that the local financial regulations are not missed and that are represented in this product. Apparently, this is the person who knows the local market. But on the overall visionary one, we have someone that we call group product owner. This is actually the person who is responsible for prioritization and actually saying yes or no if we go with some local specific. Some are, as I told you, non-negotiable. Okay, so this was briefly about product decisions, and which covers all three things that we wanted to share with you. If I remind you on our vision from the beginning that we wanted to have this digital solution that would be simple and easy for our customers to help them to quickly access money and also to help us as the organization to improve our revenue. Probably you can ask yourselves, okay, how do we know that we are successful? Well, our business figures shows that. For lending, it's absolutely proven that digital transformation was a game changer on all of the markets. From time to money that we were measuring in weeks, we came to 14 minutes in average. And also, it's not that we are losing money, but we are actually earning a lot in lending, and it's constantly improving. Very similar situation is also in foreign exchange, where we have now trading volumes in millions and actually very satisfied customers with this product and the service that they are getting for FX. On the other side, if we also look a bit internally, engineering KPIs and efficiency metrics, from where we are now and 4 years ago when we embarked in the journey in the product areas of lending and FX, for example, deployments to production were happening twice in half a year, let's say. And now we are in average with 21 deployments per quarter, where the cycle time is around 14 days in average. I know that we cannot be compared to Google and all the startups, but it's also not even needed to be compared with them. We are comparing with ourselves. And also another one that is really also representative is that our time to resolve for incidents was measured in days, and many departments across the organization were involved in resolving them. That's why it took ages. Now it's actually measured in minutes, and it's due to the fact that our teams are set up in a way that they are actually building and running these products. You noticed road to here was curvy. It's still probably curvy ahead of us. We are far away from being done because these products are in the growth stage. Anna already mentioned that in FX they were adopting their product strategy, and this is actually where we are at the moment. Colleagues are exploring the potential update of business model and how to adopt these product strategies with business strategies and the changing needs on the market, which would mean that continuously we actually go on with modernization of our technological system, evolving our architecture, and of course our organizational design.
Okay, so let me just remind you shortly what you have heard today. So we talked about how we designed a multi-site product setup for two products serving lending and foreign exchange businesses in a bank and its collaboration model. We briefly or longly touched the challenges, or talked about the challenges we encountered on the way, and some of them, how we actually address them, and learnings with the team setup, ways of working, and product decision making. But if there is one thing that you should leave this room with today after this talk, it's the following. Yes, you can achieve all of your goals, but really just by simply embracing systems thinking and continuously evolving your organizational product and solution design. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for this insightful talk. I'm not sure if anyone has already noticed in the audience, it looks a bit like we have a problem with Slido. If it's up and running, can someone confirm you can write questions? Yeah, perfect, okay. So, we still have a few minutes for questions. Who's responsible for tech debt in the backlogs and making sure it's addressed?
Okay. Teams are responsible. So they are taking care that the tech debt is taken care of.
Okay. There's an additional question to that one. If the local PO is a person from the business, how they are different from SME? Business. How they are different from the business SME? So small.
They are not different. So these are people who, if I understood the question correctly, so if the local product owner is also business person who knows a segment of small and medium companies. Is that the question? If that is the question, then they are not different. This is the person who knows the segment. This is business person, yeah.
Okay. I don't know if it's Slido or me. Is there any additional questions from the audience? Anyone else? Yeah? Okay.
So thank you for the presentation. So I work for Fidelity Investments, and I'm working for a program which has the same exact thing. So we have a group product manager, product owner, we have local product owners, and we are kind of trying to collaborate across multiple squads. So like it's almost 15, 20 squads trying to build a product which is kind of serving 42 million customers. So my main the question that I wanted to ask, so how are we kind of mitigating the risks of delayed commitments, because all the teams are kind of collaborating together. So like what is your way to achieve, like handle the dependencies that are across the squads? Because in our setup, like one dependency, if we miss one deadline, like it kind of spills over for the other squads as well. So it's like 20, 25 squads across multiple regions, multiple teams trying to push towards that one product goal. So yeah, if you could address that.
Yeah, so it's the short feedback loops essentially that are established. So basically you have to, it depends how closely those teams need to collaborate. So if you have to, in our case, we had to handle those dependencies or think about them or plan them and talk about them in the road mapping meeting. So this was enough that we talk about them every 4 weeks and that we address them. So really we talked about the risks and the dependencies, and then we address them by prioritizing it. If I'm dependent on some team, other team, they would be prioritizing this so that in the sprint this is really solved. If you have to do it, and this is now not what we had to, but if you have to do it inside of the sprint or on a daily, you would put some cross-country stand-up or something like this where you would ensure that what you have planned and committed, but if you identify dependency, this is the first, of course, the toughest part, this is where you would kind of continuously ensure that they are addressed. But the short answer is we need to talk about it, we need to recognize them during the planning, plan accordingly, and then kind of like prioritize, yeah, in short cycles, yeah.
Okay, here's one more question from this side.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. It was really great. Just a general, I'd like to hear more about how was the transition from the MVP team to now we're having one country team per country, and we have a lot of countries.
It's interesting. Yeah, all these challenges that I mentioned and many more. Yes, so it's really, I think we heard in many talks here today, it's people thing, and we also put people in ours. So we really had to address a lot of these social elements and components. I think it's this technical part, even if we are talking about legacy systems, right, it's challenging, but this engineering still is was at least, I speak for myself, for lending, easier than this socio element, I would say, yes. So, important thing maybe that we didn't mention here is that we brought one context, but we as organization are huge, and we are on this agile transformation journey for 10-ish years, and we are on certain level of maturity. And it also, of course, helps, right? You have to have environment that enables you to do this. And luckily, even though we are like this dinosaur, our management, we are talking about C-level management, is really aware and support, and they are themselves on this transformative journey for years already. So I think it's also something which was our wind in our back. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you as well for the great talk. Maybe you already answered it with your last few sentences, but whenever you're in this situation, like those meaningless political conflicts rise, right? Some country wants to push for this particular solution because it makes their life so easy, but then it contradicts with what others can do. Like this happens all the time, very naturally. You mentioned C-level commitment for this overall, but maybe there's something else. Maybe you can actually share one of those conflicts which surely arise, and then one or two techniques how you actually resolve this, right? Because it's people, yes, but yeah, I mean those things happen all the time. A great one team is somehow able to resolve it.
Yeah, so I start and you can continue. I mean, the technique is you have to have an aligned goal. So you have to start from there because yes, you have politics, but this is what we started with, as I said, the business owners, in our case, B-1 in a hierarchy for a particular business, had to commit to this group solution and had to commit to the goals or KPIs and problems that we want to solve with this solution. So this always trumps their local needs. That would be a technique, but then practically?
But also, if you have been in the talk from Lutz and Flo, they mentioned something about that every engineer need to know in their company why and why do it. So we also follow that principle very much. And everything what Anna said, it's also important that these goals are clear and known to everyone. And it really, for us, for coaches, 70% of our job was already done because, there are no these discussions, but still they happen, of course. And then we had group road mapping. We have clear roles and responsibilities where we say, okay, this is our bet. These are our goals. We believe now, okay, we have proven this. We go still for, I don't know, next quarter for this. And that's okay, group product owner said, okay, guys, from Croatia, we park it. Maybe next quarter we discuss your idea, maybe we will test it. But we prioritized given our clear goals.
Yeah, and we do have, this is recorded, but okay. We do have in our organization example where this didn't happen, where there was no commitment, and the same model was applied, and it's not working.
Okay, we are a bit over time, but as you can see, it's such an interesting talk, and I guess you will stay here around for a while, so if you have any additional questions, sure. Use the break, use the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was our pleasure.
And enjoy the break. Thank you.